when government says they've met a major part of ASUU's demands, I think it is very misleading.
How so?
ASUU, yes, even the fact that they said ASUU's strike is too impromptu is misleading, because ASUU gave, if you were following the headlines, ASUU gave 14 days ultimatum before the strike was declared, the warning strike was declared. Now, ASUU has always been talking about the 2009 renegotiated agreement, and that the federal government has always defaulted on their promises, because if you remember, in 2022, which was the last time we went on a 9-month strike, the government met with ASUU, and then they agreed to implement the outcomes of the agreement, the renegotiated agreement, the embarked report. But immediately the strike was called off, they reneged on that, on those memorandum of understanding, the memorandum of understanding that was signed with ASUU. And so ASUU has been communicating. The one thing that sometimes Nigerians may not understand is that there are channels through which ASUU communicate demands to government. Sometimes they hold meetings with them, sometimes they write memos to inform government of the renegotiated agreement they've had with government, the MOU signed with government. But government will not take any action until once there is a strike action. That is when, or when there is a threat of strike action, that is when government will begin to call ASUU for meetings, sometimes random meetings, overnight meetings and all of that. But this time too, although what they offered ASUU has not been disclosed. Today, we as people in the branches...
What is ASUU actually demanding?
ASUU is demanding the implementation of the renegotiated Memorandum of Understanding. The embarked report that was given has not been implemented. There are unresolved issues. Some of these issues include the conclusion and signing of the renegotiated 2009 federal government ASUU agreement, payment of withheld 3.5 months salaries. When we went on the prolonged strike in 2022, there was no pay for about 7 months or so. And so at the end of the strike, government called us and we renegotiated and agreed that government was going to offset the arrears of the salaries owed lecturers. And then they didn't pay until sometime early this year or late last year. They paid 4 months arrears. Then 3.5 months is left. Up till this time, there has been no attempt to pay that money. So that is one of the reasons for this current impasse. Another thing is sustainable funding and revitalization of public universities, and an end to the victimization of lecturers in LASU, KSU, and now Prince Abubakar Audu University, and FUTO. In these universities, lecturers have been victimized. Some salaries have been withheld for going to 10 months or more, and some have been denied promotion, and so many other, some have been dismissed for no just cause without going through the due process of dismissal. And so ASUU is saying that federal government must intervene to stop this victimization of lecturers. So these are all the reasons why ASUU is saying they are going back to the trenches. Now, if you, for example, look at the revitalization of public universities, if you go to some public universities, you'll be amazed the level of rot in those universities. We are operating a TSA system, and the universities cannot even generate enough IGR on their own to develop the campuses. And so we cannot take care of the hostels. We cannot effectively provide power in our universities. Even lecture theaters, sometimes students have to stand to learn. And sometimes you see as many as, I have a class, the current year 3 class going to final year. That class is about 246 students. You can imagine. I asked a friend in Japan, what is the size, size of a big class in Japan? And he told me 20, 25.
That's a big class.
That's a big class. But where you are dealing, as a lecturer, you are dealing with a class of over 200. You know, smaller classes here are those within 80 something to 100, you know. And you have people clustered, you know, the environment is not conducive for learning.
Well,
we know.
GST courses actually have people up to 1,000.
No. Those ones are in thousands.
GST in thousands.
Yes, in thousands. You know, there are no, there is no electricity most of the times in campuses. We know that the Tertiary Education Trust Fund has been trying our best in providing infrastructure in university campuses, including state universities, colleges of education, and polytechnics. But it is not enough. It is like a drop in the ocean. And we are expecting the federal government to directly intervene in areas of need. There have been need assessments that the federal government has done over time. But when the report is given to them, nothing happens. And so these are the reasons why ASUU is saying, no, we cannot allow our students to suffer the way they are suffering. We cannot allow students to be in the universities without functional libraries. In the 21st century...
The federal government actually says that as much as you are saying you cannot allow the students to be there, that you don't go on strike because you have the interest of the students at heart. It's more like it is your interest that compels you to go on strike.
That is a fallacy from
the pit of hell. But that's what the federal government said.
Yes, that's what they will say. But that is a fallacy from the pit of hell. I say this with all amounts of responsibility. You know, a learning environment should be conducive enough so for someone to concentrate and learn. If ASUU was not doing any of these things for the sake of the students, we could just make one demand. In fact, some junior lecturers actually argue in Congress or in the congresses we've held over time that we should not bother ourselves with universities revitalization. We should just bother ourselves with welfare of the lecturers. Otherwise, if we were only asking for betterment of our welfare, probably federal government would have been able to meet it. But that is not the only thing we're asking for. In fact, most of the times we downplay the welfare of lecturers and then, you know, bring to the fore issues of revitalization. Over time, you've been hearing about revitalization. We've not minced words about it. And so when federal government is trying to instigate students that lecturers are going on strike for our personal interest, it is very misleading and unfortunate, because we are doing this both for ourselves and for the students. We know there are no functional laboratories in so many schools. Do you know many of our scholars, even academics who are going to school, and don't forget, so many lecturers in the lower rung of the ladder are also students in different tertiary institutions. Those that have not gotten their PhDs, they are students themselves. Children of lecturers are students. Relatives and nephews, nieces are students in different tertiary institutions. So why would federal government say lecturers are going on strike for our own interest? We could just ask government, because actually the salary of university lecturers, especially in the federal universities, is appalling. It's nothing to write home about. For example, in the federal universities, a professor earns as little as 380, 420,000. Yes, a professor. The highest a professor would earn, a professor at bar will earn in the federal university, is still not up to 500,000 naira. You can imagine that. Meanwhile, in an ideal situation, in the current, going by the current economy in Nigeria, a lecturer, a graduate assistant, the day you are employed, should not earn less than 300,000 naira at the least. Because even that 300,000 naira is nothing to equate the volume of work we do as lecturers. So many people think that the job of a lecturer is to go to the classroom and teach. For me, and for most lecturers, that is an insignificant part of the job. Because what we do is much more than that. As a lecturer, you teach, you research, you do community service. Now, inside teaching, when you teach, you are going to be setting continuous assessment, either assignments, tests, presentation classes, or whatever. When you do, you are going to assess them. You are going to mark scripts in excess of 200 in a class. For GES courses, you are going to be marking scripts in excess of 2,000, 3,000 as the case may be. Then, as you are teaching those courses, you are also supervising your final year project students. Sometimes 10, sometimes more. You are supervising. Do you know what it means to supervise one project student? It means that you are going to be reading their work from chapters 1 to chapter 3, which is the proposal, and then from chapter 4 to 5. And you are going to be reading it over and over again. When you make corrections, you recommend corrections, send to the student. The student will make the corrections, return to you. You read again and ensure that the student has effected those corrections. Then you are going to be setting examination questions. You are going to be providing or producing marking scheme. The marking scheme is a guide on how you will mark and grade the student. And you are going to be doing that. The exam is already at hand. You are going to be supervising and vigilating. While you are doing that, you are probably also teaching postgraduate students at the same time. You are setting their own questions for CA or even examinations. You are vigilating their own examinations. As a lecturer, you are expected to be attending conferences on the basis of which you will be promoted. And again, you are going to be making publications. Now, I got promoted from the ranks of lecturer 1 to senior lecturer. I had to make at least 14 publications. And these are very expensive things to do. Because sometimes, because of the way our promotion system is organized, you have to pay to publish your works. And some of these journals you are going to be publishing your works are as expensive as you can imagine. For example, you are going to be paying for Web of Science, for Scopus journals. You are going to be making a publication, some of them free, but you would have to submit your paper and wait for example, sometimes 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, as the case may be, before the review is out, and then you effect the correction, send back to them. So it takes a whole lot of time. So you may not be able to meet up if you are waiting for free publications. And then you have to pay sometimes $300 for one publication, $600, $1,000 for one publication. And you are expected to have 14 for you to be promoted to the rank of a senior lecturer, for you to be promoted to the rank of an associate professor, as far as our rules are concerned. You are going to be publishing at least 22 papers. All this involves your mental input, your financial input, and all of that. Then the lecturer is paid paltry amounts, and the lecturers are not putting that in the forefront. So there is a lot in the Nigerian university system that need to be corrected that the federal government is not paying attention to. And those are the reasons why lecturers are always going on strike. It is not against the students. We want the improvement of the conditions of learning of both the students and then the conditions of the work conditions and the work environment of lecturers.
Well, you mentioned the fact that there were some months owed from the past strike.
Sure.
I recall that the Buhari administration had said that no work, no pay. That's why you had some outstanding. Now the government is also reminding you that there will be no work, no pay. Are you not bothered about the fact that you're you're going back around hole and hole? Is it some people would express frustration and just say ASUU is the problem, especially when you have another union now. And the second
you mean Konwa?
Konwa said they are not going on strike. So is Konwa working for the benefits of education, which you are working against?
Konwa was a splinter group of ASUU. Some lecturers who have compromised themselves with the federal government. Yes. They compromised themselves and then became advocates for the federal government. And so we are not surprised. They are very insignificant compared to ASUU. And when federal government says no work, no pay, they don't understand the context in which that applies to a university environment. There is no time lecturers don't work.
Okay.
Lecturers may not teach, but they are working. Because the three major components of a lecturer's work are teaching, research, community service. So if we are not teaching, we are still doing our various researches. And then people are doing community service. I am here. This is community service. This is community service. And in fact, anytime I come on radio like this, you are supposed to be giving me a certificate, which I should present to the promotions committee anytime I want to go for promotion. You know. So I am working as a lecturer right now. As we sit here, I am working. In the night, when everybody is asleep, I am awake, carrying out some research to make publications. I am working. So if federal government is saying no work, no pay, it does not apply to lecturers. Thank you.